Hello, candle lovers. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Greg, and this is All About Candles. And I have a review for you today from Bath and Body Works. This is the candle that everybody's been talking about lately, off the vine. The tomato candle. I think that this packaging is nice. I think it looks like it's, professional, like a high quality design and packaging, sort of that rustic, like Italian garden type of vibe with a gold, box, sort of text box in the middle of it. I think it's nice enough. It's just not really my cup of tea. And this candle wasn't really my cup of tea either. If I'm gonna like a tomato candle, I want them to sort of go all in on the tomato. You know what I mean? But as it turns out, this is just a pretty typical Bath and Body Works fruity floral body care fragrance. The scent notes on it are heirloom tomato, garden geranium, and Mediterranean moss. And I think that the predominant scent note in here is really the geranium, the floral of that geranium note. To me, geranium can smell a little bit rosy, although there's a little bit of a more greener vibe to it, perhaps a little bit lemony. It's sort of naturally sweet, even honeyed a little bit. Geranium I associate with a fairly sharp, like aromatic quality, similar to lavender, but softer, perhaps almost a little bit of like a masculine for a floral. And that's what I pick up first and foremost in this fragrance. Second of all, there is definitely like a green, leafy vine fragrance happening in here. And I think in the scent notes, it's the Mediterranean moss that sort of accounts for that scent. And it's a little bit leafy. It's almost a little bit damp, a little bit mossy, I'd say. Usually mossy I would equate with something a little bit more funky than this. This just sort of smells like a very nice sort of floral plant. And then there is a tomato note in here to my nose. I've seen some reviews where people have said they don't really pick up on the tomato at all. I definitely do pick up on the tomato in this, but it's not like the star of the show. The tomato, I think, actually comes sort of third place to that floral note, and then that green note, and then just an itty bitty little touch of sort of a vague tomato. What I do appreciate is that it is not like a pizza sauce sort of tomato or a pasta sauce or anything like that. It does smell really fairly like earthy and natural. And I don't think it's a bad fragrance. I think that it's a nice enough fragrance. I think it's a little bit weird to have this out in body care. It's not a fragrance that I would want to wear, and I don't really think it's a fragrance that I would enjoy smelling on somebody else either. You know what I mean? But it's a nice enough fragrance. I think that they should have just scrapped the whole body care idea and just given us a really neat, interesting tomato candle. Really lean into offering something a little bit more unique for Bath and Body Works. I wish that this was like a tomato fragrance first and foremost, with a lot of like green, leafy stem, vines, grass, seeds, all that stuff. That's what I would have liked. But what this really just ends up being is a very typical Bath and Body Works fruity floral, except that that fruit is tomato. You know what I'm saying, folks? Tomato. The candle performed pretty nicely though. I don't have any major complaints. It was a really nice clean burn from top to the bottom, all the way down to the end there. I never really had issues seeing it soot a lot or getting dirty or dudding out or anything like that. I'd say that the strength and the throw on this one was probably about, I think it varied a little bit. I think that it was fairly inconsistent. Obviously it has to do with how much you've let the candle cool out. But I'd say that there was some burns on this where I was only getting about a 6 in my more open space. This really didn't strike me as a bedroom candle, but I did put it in the bedroom for a little while to see if I could get more strength and throw out of it in a slightly smaller space. And in my medium-sized bedroom, it definitely got up to like a 7, I think. But what sort of came across most once again was that like floral geranium. And, you know, I didn't really walk into the space and think, oh, it's tomato time, you know? It was sort of a typical fruity floral. And if you really sort of squint and like breathe in, you get a little bit of that sort of tomato vibe from it, but it's mostly that geranium with like a green leafiness. Yeah, it some of the big burns on it in the bedroom got up to a 7, but in my more open area, I'd say that it was around a 6 most of the time. Maybe it got up to a 6.5. It really did seem inconsistent, you know, because somewhere between a 6 and a 7, so we'll say it averaged at about a 6.5, but some of the burns were really faint and like a little bit disappointing even when it pooled out. And then some of the burns were a little bit better. It was a little bit inconsistent for me as far as strength and throw goes. Am I going to be repurchasing this candle? I don't think so. I think that is a one and done for me for sure. Would I recommend it to you? I don't know. This is definitely one of those fragrances that you need to get into the store and smell it first. If you like the way that this fragrance smells in the store, I don't really have a reason to not recommend it. Like I said, really nice clean burn all the way down to the bottom. Varied a bit for strength and throw, but a 6 to a 7 I consider to be acceptable. So it definitely had a presence to it. You could smell it when it was lit, so maybe it's a recommendation from me. I give Bath & Body Works some credit for doing something a little bit more interesting, but I wish that they had done something even more interesting. I really wish that they had leaned into this one and given us a much more like vegetal tomato type of vibe, but typical fruity floral from Bath & Body Works. Anyways, that's all I've got for you folks today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram at allaboutcandles. You can email your burning questions to allaboutcandles@gmail.com. I love you for watching today, and until next time, my dear, gorgeous, and beautiful candle-loving friends, let's burn some candles and bitch about it. Thanks, you guys. Bye for now.